This could be the end of gas stoves in Europe. Financial support for their purchase has already been discontinued, and in 5 years, it will be illegal to install them in new buildings. This is a decision by the European Union that could have a significant impact on the household budgets of Polish families. There is no lack of controversial regulations introduced by the EU. In early February, the European Commission allowed insect larvae to be added to food products, from bread to dairy. From banning the sale of new gas-powered cars, to requiring the modernization of buildings, or even promoting the consumption of insects as a source of protein, the European Union's ideas are controversial, to say the least. Are they going to ban and prescribe what we should do? A scandal. I think this is all a setup. All the things that the EU is restricting are connected to Germany. Remember when they wanted to introduce Teflon cookers? It was all produced by Germany and planned in advance. Now, the European Union is introducing changes that will force the phasing out of gas use in new buildings. Starting this year, the subsidy rules for gas stoves will become less favorable, and from 2030 onward, all new buildings will have to use renewable energy sources. Under the Clean Air program, the European Union subsidized the Polish people to replace coal stoves with gas ones. Today, we are learning that we need to move away from gas stoves. This means additional expenses for households. Gas is the main source of heat for many Polish households. Replacing gas stoves also entails higher costs, which many households may find difficult to bear, especially those that have already benefited from these subsidies. Replacing gas stoves, even with modern ones, involves costs that may be difficult for many households to bear, especially those that have already benefited from subsidies and installed gas stoves. This is not the end of the controversy. The European Union has introduced a new carbon emission standard that says the average emissions of new cars must not exceed 93.6 grams per kilometer. This means that manufacturers will adapt their cars so that the average emissions of their fleet do not exceed this limit. In practice, this means an increase in the price of internal combustion cars and pressure on manufacturers to sell more electric cars. Consumers will feel these changes.
Samochody, które w 2025 roku wyjadą z linii produkcyjnej, będą droższe około...
Cars that roll off the assembly line in 2025 will be about 1,500 euros more expensive. And why? Because the European Union has already imposed a penalty on manufacturers of combustion cars as a result of the tax. The money will go into the European Commission's budget to burn off EU debt. In addition to energy policy changes, the European Union has also decided to allow the consumption of worms, which are seen as an alternative source of protein. Food manufacturers will be able to add mealworm larvae powder to breads, cheeses, and jams, starting this month. I can't imagine eating worms. We need to set that straight. They can eat bugs themselves if they want to. This is an absurd and bizarre issue. First of all, in our culture, it is not acceptable to give people worms to eat. Secondly, there are health concerns. We do not know where these worms have been. Many people believe that the European Union's introduction of ever tighter restrictions is actually a move to limit people's freedom. In America, Donald Trump's policy is to oppose the green madness. Meanwhile, the Polish government is submitting to EU norms. The results of this green policy are more expensive cars, rising energy prices, and pain for household budgets. Faced with these challenges, the question is whether Poland should follow the EU's climate policy, or rather, following Trump's example, take care of its own country's well-being.